Have you ever stopped to wonder if what you truly see, hear, or feel is an exact, objective mirror of reality? Or if maybe your brain is actually a master architect, subtly shaping and predicting it? Today, we're diving deep into a concept that really turns our understanding of perception on its head. It suggests our brains might be actively predicting reality, not just passively receiving it. Welcome to The Deep Dive, your ultimate shortcut to understanding complex concepts where we unpack the ideas that truly matter.
That's right. Today's deep dive is, it's an extensive journey into the fascinating realm of the Bayesian brain and predictive processing. We're exploring how our perception could be a constant act of prediction rather than just an interpretation of, raw sensory data. And this isn't just about neuroscience. It weaves together threads from philosophy, cognitive science, mathematics, even the cutting edge of AI. It offers a profoundly logical, really interconnected view of the mind.
Okay, and we've got a rich stack of sources for this deep dive, primarily drawn from the Bayesian brain, perception as prediction. Seems to cover everything, right? From predictive coding and active inference to the strange implications for spatial disorientation and even hallucinations. Our mission, then, is to meticulously unpack every crucial fact, mechanism, and implication contained within these sources.
Exactly. Our exploration will reveal how the brain constructs our experienced reality using things like internal models, statistical inference, and even physical action. We'll thoroughly examine key concepts like free energy minimization, the critical role of neuromodulators, and importantly, alongside the critiques and the really fascinating future applications of this whole framework, this deep dive is designed to be comprehensive, ensuring you grasp every nuanced detail and truly understand the underlying logic that makes this theory so compelling.
All right, let's jump right in then. To kick things off, we'll start with a striking, very real-world phenomenon, the chilling black hole illusion experienced by pilots. This should powerfully illustrate the brain's predictive capabilities, right?
Absolutely. From there, we'll move into the foundational theory, predictive processing, and generative models. We'll break down exactly how concepts like hierarchical models, prediction error minimization, and the free energy principle actually work.
Then we'll dive into the critical role of precision and neuromodulation, exploring why not all prediction errors are treated equally by your brain. Sounds crucial.
It is. Next up, we'll draw a clear contrast between active inference and classic reinforcement learning. This reveals a genuinely new perspective on how we interact with the world, how we make decisions.
Okay, here's where it gets truly wild, I think. We'll examine how hallucinations and overweighted priors can emerge when this predictive system goes awry, like the mind constructing its own reality.
Precisely. And then, importantly, we'll take a critical look at the framework itself. We'll address its critiques and challenges, because understanding any theory really requires examining its limitations, its potential problems.
Good point. And finally, we'll bring it home with an applied takeaway you can actually use in your daily life. Before peering into the future implications of predictive processing for artificial intelligence, let's begin with that chilling real-world scenario you mentioned, the black hole effect experienced by pilots. Can you paint a picture for us?
Imagine this, a non-instrument rated pilot flying at night on final approach. There's a lighted runway ahead, sure, but beyond it, just a vast, featureless, dark expanse. Nothing. The runway appears as a distant island of bright lights.
Okay, I can picture that. Isolated lights and darkness.
And then something unsettling happens in the pilot's perception. He feels significantly higher than he actually is. Tragically, in the state of spatial disorientation, he flew a dangerously low approach and crashed into water short of the runway. Investigators characterize this as the black hole effect.
The darkness sucks you in.
That's the phrase they used. Without a visible horizon or any other visual cues in that darkness, the sheer void can seemingly suck you in. It causes pilots to unconsciously fly lower and lower, all while believing they are maintaining altitude. It can lead to devastating accidents.
Wow. So this tragic accident is a really stark example.
It serves as an incredibly powerful and immediate real-world connection to our core concept, yes. It illustrates in the starkest possible terms how the brain's internal predictions about the visual scene can profoundly override objective reality. Fatally in this case. In that pilot situation, his brain, essentially starved of sufficient external cues, it defaulted to an internal model. And that model created a false sense of altitude and distance, leading to a fatal misinterpretation of his environment.
And this isn't just limited to high-stakes flight situations, right? There are like lab experiments that show this too.
Yes, there's a well-known optical illusion experiment demonstrating a similar principle. You look at a static image, a black hole shape paired with a soft, subtle gradient around it. But instead of just seeing it as still, the image appears to expand. You get this compelling perception of actually moving forward through a dark, empty tunnel.
Even though you're perfectly still. I think I've seen that when you almost feel the motion.
Exactly. And what's truly remarkable is how researchers interpret this. They explain that the brain's visual system isn't just passively reacting to the static image. Instead, it's actively predicting how the stimulus would change if you were indeed moving forward through that dark space. And in doing so, it literally generates this illusory expansion.
So it's not just seeing, it's predicting the change.
Right. It's a dynamic act. Our brains are, in effect, trying to fill in the next moment of sensory input, basically seeing forward motion. And in a very real sense, we end up actually perceiving a future state, or at least a highly probable version of it based on our internal models. To make this really vivid for you, imagine trying to drive through incredibly thick fog at night. The scattered road lights appear distorted, right? And your brain insists you're going faster or maybe slower than you really are.
Yeah, that feeling is unsettling. You can't trust your senses.
Right. And this internal insistence causes you to misjudge distances, potentially leading to a very different and dangerous outcome. All because your brain is actively trying to make sense of ambiguous input, relying on its internal predictions.
So whether it's a pilot's dangerous disorientation or a simple optical illusion, these cases are a powerful evidence. They tell us perception is clearly not just a literal readout of light from our senses, not like a camera.
Precisely. It's far more complex. Instead, perception is unmistakably, actively shaped by internal predictions. This fundamental idea lays the crucial groundwork for our entire deep dive. Our brains aren't just receiving information, they are energetically generating our reality based on an internal model. Which immediately raises a really profound question, doesn't it?
Which is it?
If our reality is primarily an internally predicted construct, how reliable is it? Especially when external sensory cues are ambiguous, misleading, or maybe entirely absent.
Okay, so after exploring that chilling case study, what's the big takeaway? What does this mean for how we understand seeing the world? It seems our brains can be tricked, not just passively, but by actively generating what we perceive. It's almost like creating reality.
It does feel that way, doesn't it? The black hole illusion isn't just some anomaly or a weird visual quirk. It's really a profound window into the brain's fundamental operations. It shows us the brain is a constant predictor. That's its default mode. And sometimes those predictions, while usually incredibly helpful, efficient for navigating a complex world, they can lead us astray, especially when external cues are missing or misleading or just too sparse for reliable validation. It really highlights the brain's deep reliance on its internal models to make sense of uncertainty.
All right, let's unpack this further then. How exactly does the brain do this predicting thing? How does it manage to forecast reality and construct our experience? What's the theory?
The theoretical framework that addresses this, often called predictive processing or PP, it suggests the brain operates as a hierarchy of generative models. These models are constantly trying to predict incoming sensory data.
Okay, hierarchy of generative models. Let's break that down. What are generative models in this context?
Well, think of them as sophisticated, multi-layered internal representations. Miniature theories the brain holds about how the world works, basically. Each brain area within this hierarchy effectively embodies a model of how hidden causes in the world produce sensations. Now, hidden causes, those are the underlying unobservable things that give rise to our sensory experiences.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so a hidden cause could be the actual three-dimensional structure of a chair in your room. You don't see the whole structure at once, right? Or the precise location of a sound source in space. Or even, say, a person's underlying intention in a social interaction. You infer it. These unseen causes then generate the raw sensory input we receive, the specific patterns of light on your retina, the sound waves hitting your eardrum, the pressure on your skin.
Got it. And these models are organized hierarchically.
Yes, that's crucial. It means that higher levels predict complex features. So, for instance, a higher level in this brain hierarchy might predict an entire complex object like a car, or a broader social context like a meeting, or the overall scene you're in, like a forest. It starts big picture.
And those big picture predictions then influence the details.
Exactly. The high-level abstract predictions then cascade down to predict lower-level features. So if a higher level predicts car, a lower level then predicts specific edges, textures like shiny metal, or expected patterns of motion for a car, Or if a higher level predicts forest, lower levels would predict specific textures like bark, sounds like rustling leaves, patterns of dappled light. This describes a consistent top-down flow of information. Your broad, abstract expectations profoundly guide the interpretation of fine sensory details.
Okay, this top-down predictive flow brings us to the core mechanism. You said perception is then a process of Bayesian inference. That sounds pretty mathematical and maybe a bit intimidating.
It can sound that way, but at its heart, the concept is remarkably elegant and intuitive. Bayesian inference, in this context, simply means that your sensory inputs are compared to predictions. And crucially, only the prediction errors, the mismatches, are propagated upward through the hierarchy.
Only the errors, not all the data.
Exactly. Your brain isn't sending all the noisy, raw sensory data up the chain. That would be incredibly inefficient, right? Instead, it's a much smarter system. A prediction error is just the surprise. It's the difference between what your brain expected to receive based on its internal model and what it actually received from your senses. And neurons carrying these error signals tell higher levels how to adjust their beliefs, how to update the model. This is the fundamental learning and updating mechanism. Your brain pays attention to what's surprising or unexpected, and it uses that surprise to continuously refine its internal model of the world, making it more accurate for the future.
So the brain's overall goal then, according to this, is it tries to minimize surprise. It wants to tune its internal model so that predictions match reality as closely as possible, like a cosmic proofreader.
That's a great way to put it. And this idea is rigorously formalized by Carl Friston's free energy principle. He defines variational free energy not just as surprise, but as an upper bound on surprise. Think of it as the total cost or maybe discomfort your brain experiences when its current internal model doesn't align well with the incoming sensory data. The brain is constantly trying to minimize this free energy.
And how does it do that? Minimize this free energy.
Conceptually, there are two main ways. The brain can either change internal beliefs, which means learning, updating, refining its internal model to better explain the data it's getting, or it can achieve this by sampling data to match predictions, which is active inference, something we'll dive into more deeply later.
Okay, change the model or change the data it gets.
Right. You can imagine it like a meticulous scientist refining a hypothesis. If the data doesn't fit the current hypothesis, they either modify the hypothesis to better account for the new observations, or they conduct new experiments specifically designed to get the data they expected in the first place, thus kind of making the world fit their theory. So, in a nutshell, the brain explains away the predictable parts of sensory input, the parts that perfectly match its expectations. Those don't need much processing. It only really encodes the unpredictable residual, the surprising information. And it uses that residual to constantly refine its model and achieve a state of minimal surprise or maximal certainty.
Let's circle back to this hierarchical structure because it seems really central. You said causes at one level generate subordinate causes at the next level down, eventually generating raw sensory input at the bottom. It's like a chain of command.
It is like a chain of command, from abstract concepts down to the nitty-gritty details. And this hierarchical organization provides a truly significant benefit. It allows the brain to learn rich contextual priors. Priors are basically learned expectations built up through experience that are heavily influenced by context.
Can you give an example of that, a contextual prior?
Sure. Think about this. Seeing a horizon line makes a uniform dark field feel like ground. Without that horizon context, a dark field could be anything. A wall, deep space, a bottomless pit, right? But the higher level expectation of a horizon line, which is a strong prior learned from experience, immediately biases your lower level perception. It makes you interpret that dark field as solid ground. This shows how higher level expectations profoundly guide and constrain lower level perception, allowing for incredibly efficient processing of often ambiguous sensory data. Furthermore, by constantly minimizing free energy within these hierarchies, the brain optimizes what are called empirical priors at each level.
Empirical priors.
Yeah, these are essentially learned expectations that become more accurate through experience. By optimizing them, the brain effectively links beliefs across vastly different scales of abstraction, from the high-level concept of a room all the way down to the specific patterns of light intensity hitting your retina right now.
So at each and every level of this hierarchy, the brain is tirelessly working to update its beliefs by minimizing the difference between predicted and actual signals. It's this continuous dynamic self-correction process.
Exactly. It keeps our internal model aligned with reality, or at least aligned with our brain's best guess of reality. And this dynamic self-correcting process is remarkably similar in spirit at least, to what engineers call a Kalman filter.
A Kalman filter, like in GPS.
Precisely. Many people might know it from GPS tracking on their phone. It's a powerful algorithm used in navigation, robotics, signal processing. It functions by making predictions about the future state of a system, say your location, and then it continuously corrects those predictions based on noisy incoming measurements, like satellite signals, to ultimately provide an optimal estimate of the true state. As some researchers noted back in 2015, predictive coding resembles Kalman filtering, where incoming sensory information is filtered to produce prediction errors for subsequent adaptation and learning. So, without needing the heavy math, imagine your brain constantly forecasting what your next glimpse or sensation will be. And it only adjusts its overall prediction when that forecast is wrong. Like a GPS continually rerouting when you take a wrong turn, the brain is continually rerouting or refining its internal model via these prediction errors. It's ensuring it maintains the most accurate possible representation of reality given the data it has.
So to really boil it down, we're talking about a brain that's not just passively receiving information. That seems key. It's actively guessing what's next, and it only pays significant attention to what surprises it. It's like a meticulous scientific method running constantly, relentlessly in our heads, a cycle of hypothesis generation and testing.
Indeed. That's a great analogy. And the ultimate fundamental goal of this entire operation is to reduce surprise, to make the world match its internal model as closely and consistently as possible. This goes far beyond just passive observation. It really implies a continuous, dynamic, and proactive interaction with our environment. The brain is constantly constructing and refining its reality.
Now, here's a truly crucial implication you hinted at earlier. It elevates this theory beyond just passive perception. The free energy principle suggests the brain doesn't just passively update beliefs based on new info. It prompts us into, actively seeking confirming data.
Absolutely. We're not just waiting for information. We're fundamentally driven to go out and find it, to make our predictions come true. As Friston highlighted back in 2010, agents can reduce surprise by acting to make the world fit their predictions. This is where the concept of active inference really comes into play, and it marks a profound shift in understanding behavior.
Can you give an example of active inference?
Consider the very simple yet powerful example of feeling one's way in darkness. In this situation, we don't just passively brush our hands against surfaces and react, right? Instead, we predict what we will touch next. Perhaps, I expect to feel the edge of this table right here, and then we move our hand precisely, intentionally, to confirm that prediction. More generally, the brain continuously adopts various behaviors from rapid, deliberate eye movements, saccades that sample specific visual information, to larger body actions like walking or reaching. All of these serve to sample the world in a way that minimizes prediction error and also helps to maintain homeostasis.
Homeostasis, like keeping things stable.
Yes, but in this context, homeostasis refers not just to physiological balance, but to maintaining a stable, predictable internal state. We do this by actively predicting and confirming sensations that align with survival, well-being, and a coherent internal model of the world. To reinforce this, imagine that meticulous detective again. This detective doesn't just passively look for clues. No, they actively create situations, conduct experiments, strategically move things around to confirm their existing theory about what happened, quite literally making the world fit their predictions.
Okay, let's try and consolidate all these ideas. You've absorbed a lot about how your brain might function as this prediction machine. The predictive processing framework seems to emphasize 5 core concepts that really drive this perspective. Can you recap those?
Sure. To elaborate on each, giving you a comprehensive understanding. First, there's the concept of hierarchical generative models and top-down predictions. Your brain builds multi-layered models. Higher-level expectations shape lower-level interpretation. Second, prediction error minimization as fundamental computation. The brain's basic operation is reducing the mismatch, the surprise between prediction and reality. Third, the crucial concept of precision weighting of prediction errors. We'll get into this next, but basically not all errors are equal. Some get more weight. Fourth, active inference. This is the principle that our actions are taken to literally fulfill our predictions, driven by the desire to reduce surprise. And finally, fifth, PP contrasts fundamentally with classic reinforcement learning. While RL maximizes external rewards, PP minimizes surprise or free energy. It's a different view of motivation.
So what does all this mean for you, the listener? You now have a foundational, pretty powerful understanding of the predictive processing framework. We've seen that your brain is not merely observing. It's a relentless prediction machine, constantly generating hypotheses about the world and refining its internal model. It's a truly active process.
Indeed. The core revelation here is, well, it's kind of mind-bending, isn't it? Your brain isn't just a passive receiver. It's a relentless, self-correcting hypothesis generator. It's constantly predicting what reality should be and only registering the bits of surprise or error to refine its model. This fundamentally flips our intuitive idea of perception on its head. The big takeaway is that your perception is less about simply seeing and more about guessing and correcting.
Yeah.
This means the reality you experience is a highly refined, constantly updated internal best guess, a masterful construction of your own mind.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit counterintuitive, as you mentioned. Not all prediction errors are created equal in your brain. The framework suggests your brain doesn't just register an error. It actively estimates the uncertainty or reliability, what's technically called inverse variance, of each error. And this estimation, which dictates how much an error matters, is called precision. Right, that's a key distinction, yes. Formally, precision is the gain on error signals. What this means in practice is that more precise, or high confidence, signals are given significantly more weight. They have higher gain in updating your beliefs about the world. Think of it like a finely tuned volume knob for errors.
A volume knob.
Yeah, a highly precise error gets turned up loud, demanding immediate attention and a rapid adjustment of your internal model, whereas a less precise error is barely registered, maybe even ignored. This mechanism elegantly accounts for why attention, context, and the reliability of sensory input matters so much in what we perceive and learn. For example, a sudden, extremely loud, clearly identifiable noise, like a fire alarm that carries very high precision. Okay, yeah, you pay attention to that immediately.
Right. It will drive belief updates far more powerfully than, say, a faint, ambiguous rustle in the background. That rustle might be low precision because its source is uncertain, or it could just be background noise. The brain gives it less weight.
That intuitive explanation makes perfect sense. But how does a brain actually implement this weighting, this volume control for errors? What's the biological how behind precision?
Biologically, precision is thought to be implemented via synaptic gain modulation. This refers to how easily neurons fire or how strongly they respond to incoming signals. When a signal is given high precision, the neurons processing that error become more sensitive, amplifying its impact. And crucially, slow neuromodulators, key brain chemicals like dopamine, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, may encode precision in different domains.
So these chemicals act like the tuners.
They seem to play that role. For instance, dopamine bursts, often associated with novelty or reward in other theories, are hypothesized here to specifically signal high confidence in certain predictions. This could be a prediction about an upcoming reward, maybe, or a particularly salient, important event in your environment. By doing so, they effectively amplify those error signals, making them highly influential in updating the brain's model. As Andy Clark concisely put it in 2013, predictive processing describes an intricate economy within which dopamine and other neurotransmitters control the precision, the weighting of prediction error itself.
And has research backed this up?
Yes, recent work has further confirmed this intricate interplay. It shows that distinct neural pathways, cholinergic, dopaminergic, noradrenergic, can each mediate different precision weights. And not just on sensory inputs, but also on action policies, or even higher-level abstract predictions. This highlights the incredibly specific and complex roles these neuromodulators play in dynamically shaping our experienced reality.
So you've learned that your brain isn't just correcting errors. It's profoundly weighing them, deciding which ones matter most based on their reliability and how confident your brain is in that particular error signal. It's almost like your brain is a sophisticated Bayesian statistician constantly doing probability calculations.
Exactly. That's a great way to think about it. The core idea here is that your brain prioritizes information. Precision equals error weight. It's how reliable or certain a prediction error is judged to be. High precision means it gets significantly more weight in updating your beliefs. And it's your key neuromodulators, chemicals like dopamine, acetylcholine, and norepinephrine, that act as the dynamic volume knobs for these error signals. They influence how strongly different errors impact your brain's internal models, thereby controlling what your brain pays attention to, what it learns from, and ultimately how it reshapes your perception.
Let's shift gears now and compare two fundamental ways of thinking about how intelligent agents, whether human or AI, learn and act. Many of you might be familiar with classic reinforcement learning, RL. In this framework, agents choose actions to maximize an external reward. Pretty standard stuff, right?
That's right. In classic RL, an agent learns to perform certain behaviors specifically because those actions lead to a clear, explicit reward signal from the environment. Think of a simple example, like a dog learning to sit on command because it gets a treat. That's the reward. Or consider an AI learning to play a complex game like chess or Go. Its objective is to maximize its score or win, which serves as its external reward. The system essentially figures out which actions lead to the highest payoff over time, usually through trial and error.
Okay, classic RL, maximize rewards. Now let's introduce the stark contrast. Active inference. You said it minimizes expected surprise or free energy by sampling data that confirm its predictions. This feels like a profoundly different perspective on motivation.
It is a fundamental paradigm shift in understanding behavior, absolutely. Carl Friston explicitly compared these two frameworks back in 2009. He stated that one can solve benchmark control tasks, like the mountain car problem, through active inference without ever using a reward or value function.
The mountain car problem, what's that?
It's a classic control task in AI. Imagine a car stuck in a valley. It needs to learn to swing back and forth to gain momentum to reach a flag at the top of a steep hill. Active inference can solve this without an explicit reward signal for making progress uphill. In the active inference view, desired outcomes are effectively those that the agent's internal model expects to encounter.
So it's not chasing a reward, it's chasing confirmation of its own expectations.
Exactly. Rather than pursuing a hard-coded external reward, the agent acts to seek out the data that confirms its own internal predictions. This is a truly significant philosophical shift. The agent isn't pursuing external utility, it's constantly striving to maintain a coherent, self-consistent, predictable model of its world.
This reframing must also make us fundamentally reconsider the role of dopamine, right? Which is so often tied to reward in RL.
Absolutely. From the predictive processing perspective, dopamine, often linked directly to reward in RL, is here reinterpreted as signaling the precision of predictions. So rather than simply indicating, good job, here's a treat, a dopamine burst signals increased confidence or certainty in particular predictions.
Confidence in predictions, not reward itself.
That's the idea. It might signal high confidence in a prediction about, say, the availability of a reward or the salience, the importance of an event. When stimuli that evoke dopamine bursts make certain predictions more confident, those predictions then automatically drive actions to confirm them. This offers an elegant alternative explanation for dopamine's profound role in motivation and goal-directed behavior. It reframes it from a simple reward signal to a dynamic precision weighting mechanism for expected outcomes, ensuring the brain acts on its most confident predictions.
So a truly profound implication emerges from active inference then. It essentially blurs the line between perception and action. They become deeply intertwined.
Indeed. It's a fundamental integration. The distinction between sensing the world and acting upon it kind of dissolves. This framework posits that behavior is cast as prediction of proprioceptive sensations that is realized through movement. Your brain isn't just reacting, it's proactively predicting the feeling of your muscles moving, the sensation of your body in space.
Predicting the feeling of moving.
Yes. Your actions are simply the means by which you fulfill that prediction. You predict what it feels like to move your arm to pick up a cup, and then your motor system generates the movement that makes that proprioceptive prediction come true. It ensures your internal model and external reality converge through action.
So if you've been thinking about how we act as solely chasing rewards, you've just been introduced to a completely different way to view it. Not chasing external rewards, but constantly working to reduce internal surprises. It's about coherence.
That's the heart of it, the core distinction to remember. Reinforcement learning, RL. Classic approach. Maximize external rewards. Goal-oriented pursuit of external validation. Active inference. AI. The contrast. Minimize expected surprise. Free energy. Seek data confirming internal predictions. Make the world match your map. Dopamine's role. Reinterpreted. Not just reward, but signaling the precision confidence of predictions, guiding action. Action as prediction fulfillment. Movements aren't just responses. They're the brain's proactive way of making the world, including your body's sensations, match its expectations.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and perhaps, like you said, a bit unsettling. If the brain is fundamentally a prediction machine, striving for coherence, what happens when this system malfunctions, goes seriously awry? You mentioned that dysregulated prediction can powerfully explain hallucinations and delusions.
That's a crucial and deeply insightful application of the theory, yes. The mechanism, viewed through this lens, is chillingly logical. If the brain places too much weight on its priors, its pre-existing beliefs, expectations, learned models, or generates spurious errors that aren't real or are misinterpreted as significant, then perception can run wild.
Run wild, how?
What happens is the internal model begins to dominate over actual incoming sensory input. This leads to a profoundly distorted, yet potentially internally consistent reality for the individual. The internal prediction becomes the perceived reality.
Andy Clark's discussion of schizophrenia, viewed through this lens, sounds particularly relevant here.
It offers a compelling and tragic explanation. The hypothesis is that abnormal dopamine or NMDA function, key systems in error processing, could produce persistent and highly weighted false errors that then propagate up the hierarchy. Imagine errors that are just internal noise or misinterpretations, but the brain assigns them incredibly high precision, treats them as undeniable truth.
So the brain thinks these false errors are really important signals.
Exactly, making them impossible to ignore. This then causes the brain to revise its model in bizarre ways, desperately trying to logically incorporate these false yet high-precision errors into a coherent worldview. The truly critical and frankly terrifying part is how a maladaptive generative model takes hold. Once this distorted internal model is established, it begins to sculpt all incoming sensory data to fit itself.
Sculpt the data, like twisting reality to fit the delusion.
Precisely. New sensations are interpreted so as to conform to these expectancies, creating a deeply entrenched, self-confirming loop. The brain effectively filters, warps, interprets reality to validate its own incorrect, high-precision predictions. In extreme cases, what was initially improbable, thoughts of telepathy, elaborate conspiracies, persecution, then becomes the least surprising outcome for the individual, because their internal model has become so deeply entrenched and self-validating. And from this distorted foundation, fleeting misperceptions can solidify into coherent, internally logical, yet entirely delusional narratives.
This sounds incredibly theoretical, like a fascinating concept. But is there real-world pharmacological evidence? Does science support this link between prediction errors and these states?
Yes, there is supportive evidence. For example, studies with ketamine, an NMDA antagonist drug. It's shown that ketamine induces a persistent prediction error signal and an inflated sense of importance for random events, producing temporary delusions. This provides direct empirical support. Interfering with error signals can mimic aspects of psychosis. Conversely, there's the Rebus model for psychedelics, relaxed beliefs under psychedelics.
Relaxed beliefs. How does that relate?
This model suggests that psychedelics may relax precision weighting, effectively turning down the volume knob on overly rigid priors or beliefs. This could potentially help break overly rigid priors, which hints at a fascinating potential therapeutic angle, right? By disrupting maladaptive predictive loops, maybe these substances allow for a recalibration of beliefs. It suggests a new path for mental health interventions by understanding and influencing the brain's predictive dynamics.
So to give a concise summary of the predictive processing view on something as complex and profound as hallucinations.
Fundamentally, PP suggests hallucinations arise when the brain's internal expectations, priors, or the errors it generates are significantly misweighted. In essence, the brain predicts the wrong thing or predicts something with excessively high, unwarranted confidence. And then, crucially, it experiences that strong, internally generated prediction as if it were external reality, overriding or distorting true sensory input.
You've just explored how a system designed to beautifully predict reality can, when imbalanced, essentially create its own reality. It's a chilling demonstration of the brain's powerful constructive abilities, leading to profound and sometimes debilitating experiences like hallucinations.
To recap, remember these crucial points about dysregulated prediction. Dysregulated prediction. When the brain gives too much weight to internal expectations, priors, or misinterprets errors, spurious errors, it can distort perception, letting internal models override reality. Schizophrenia as overweighted false errors. The hypothesis links abnormal neurotransmitter function, like dopamine and NMDA, to persistent high-precision false errors, forcing the brain to construct bizarre realities to make sense of them. Self-confirming loops. Once a maladaptive model forms, new sensory input gets warped to fit expectations, reinforcing delusions in a resilient cycle. Pharmacological links. Drugs like ketamine show how altering error signals can induce delusion-like states. Conversely, the Rebus model suggests psychedelics might relax precision, potentially disrupting these loops therapeutically.
All right, let's unpack this from another angle now. No grand theory, especially one as ambitious as the Bayesian brain or predictive processing, goes unchallenged, right? Despite its explanatory appeal, this framework faces several significant critiques. What are some of those key challenges?
Indeed, and it's important to address them. The first major critique is that critics argue it can become too flexible, a theory of everything that explains any result by post hoc tweaking. This is a serious concern in scientific methodology.
Post hoc tweaking, meaning it can explain anything after it happens.
Exactly. As Bowers and Davis warned back in 2012, many Bayesian models tend to fit data after the fact without making risky predictions. The problem is, if a theory can explain anything after the fact, it risks being unfalsifiable. There's no observation or experiment that could definitively prove it wrong. For a scientific theory to be robust, it needs to make risky predictions. Predictions that, if they don't pan out, would force us to reject or significantly modify the theory.
And there's also a concern that the framework can remain too abstract, right? Maybe more metaphor than mechanism.
That's another pertinent question. Jones and Love in 2011 and Colombo and Series in 2012 both note that unconstrained rational models can ignore mechanistic details and remain at the level of metaphor. Meaning, while the math and concepts are appealing, it might not map directly onto actual neural circuits and biological processes with enough specificity. A recent critique flatly stated the framework occupies an ambiguous conceptual territory between useful metaphor and legitimate mechanistic explanation.
What's the key difference there? Metaphor versus mechanism.
Well, a useful metaphor provides a helpful way to think about something, to build intuition. But a legitimate mechanistic explanation describes how it actually works at a tangible, physical, neuronal level. This ambiguity presents a significant challenge for the framework's scientific rigor and testability.
Which leads to a fundamental challenge. If the brain is a prediction machine, what specific measurable neural activity or behavior counts as definitive evidence for it? Or crucially, against it, how do you actually falsify it?
That's precisely the core of the falsifiability concern. Without clear, testable predictions that are truly unique to predictive processing, or a more direct, undeniable neural implementation we can observe, some feel that the framework can dodge falsification. This makes it incredibly difficult to design experiments that could truly differentiate PP from alternative theories of brain function. It could hinder its progress as a robust scientific explanation.
However, proponents of the framework must have strong counter-arguments to these critiques. How do they defend it?
They do, certainly. Proponents argue PP isn't meant to be a single monolithic hypothesis testable by one experiment. Instead, they view it as a broad umbrella or a general unifying framework, one that points to known neuronal motifs like the hierarchical organization of the cortex and the prevalence of feedback loops we know exist in neural networks. They also assert that PP has yielded testable models of perception. Specific, smaller-scale hypotheses derived from the framework have been tested experimentally, looking for particular patterns of neural activity or behavioral responses. This, they argue, demonstrates its practical utility in generating verifiable research, even if the overarching framework remains general.
But despite those arguments, there's still some lingering skepticism.
Yes. As one review rather bluntly put it, the apparent elegance of the framework may, on closer inspection, reflect a troubling looseness of formulation that ultimately undermines explanatory power. This suggests that while it provides a powerful conceptual lens and a mathematically elegant description, its very broadness might sometimes sacrifice the precision needed for a fully satisfactory scientific explanation that clearly distinguishes it from other models.
You've explored the profound insights of the predictive processing framework, but also its intellectual battlegrounds, where it faces its toughest questions. It's a real testament to the ongoing, rigorous, and often messy process of scientific inquiry itself.
Exactly. It's healthy for a framework to face these challenges. To briefly recap the critiques: theory of everything, risk. Concern that its flexibility allows explaining anything post hoc, making it hard to prove wrong, unfalsifiable. Metaphor versus mechanism. Is it a useful way to think about the brain, or does it truly describe the underlying neural machinery? The line can be blurry. Lack of specific predictions. Critics ask for clearer, unique predictions that would unequivocally confirm or refute the theory distinct from other explanations. Proponents' defense. They argue PP provides a framework unifying known brain structures, has led to testable models, and is valuable despite its broad scope.
So, after all this intricate theory, what does this all mean for you, the listener, in your daily life? Beyond the neuroscience and philosophy, is there a practical, actionable application?
Absolutely. Whether or not the brain is literally Bayesian in every detail, the predictive processing perspective offers a simple yet profoundly insightful exercise. We can call it a sensory prediction journal. It's a powerful tool for metacognition, for thinking about your own thinking.
A sensory prediction journal. I'm intrigued. How does one keep such a diary? What are the instructions?
The instruction is remarkably straightforward. Each day, simply note one time when your experience violated your expectation. That's your prediction error in action, right? The moment of surprise. Then, immediately after noting that surprise, take a moment to reflect on how your brain adjusted its model in response to that unexpected input. It's about actively engaging with your own cognitive processes.
Okay, note the surprise, reflect on the adjustment. What are the benefits of doing this? What will it genuinely do for someone who tries it?
Well, over time, this conscious practice can significantly sharpen your awareness of how strong criers, your deeply held beliefs and expectations, can subtly or even overtly bias your perception. For instance, if you consistently expected your usual bus to arrive exactly on time and one day it didn't, that's a clear prediction error, a surprise. By actively asking yourself why this surprise occurred and how your internal model of bus schedules, or maybe just the world's reliability, needs recalibrating, you are engaging in the very same process your brain uses unconsciously all the time to update its beliefs.
This sounds like a powerful mindful practice then, a way to become more aware of your own mental machinery.
It truly is. This mindful engagement illustrates PP in action in your own lived experience. It highlights how, at a fundamental level, we constantly generate hypotheses about the world and correct them when those hypotheses fail. It gives you direct experiential insight into the dynamic, predictive mechanisms we've been discussing, making the abstract feel much more tangible.
You now have a concrete, actionable tool to experience the predictive processing framework firsthand in your daily life. It bridges that gap between complex theory and personal experience.
Exactly. The key takeaways for practical application are simple yet powerful. Sensory prediction diary. Make it a habit. Jot down instances where your expectations, predictions, don't match reality, prediction errors. Reflect and adjust. Take a deliberate moment. Notice how your brain adapts, or needs to adapt, its internal models based on this surprise. Benefit. This sharpens your awareness of how your own strong beliefs priors can bias perception, helping you recalibrate assumptions and understand your own cognitive processes better.
Finally, let's cast our gaze into the future. How are these profound ideas about the brain's predictive power influencing the cutting-edge world of artificial intelligence? It feels like a natural convergence.
It's a truly significant area of cross-pollination, yes. A genuine intellectual feedback loop between neuroscience and AI. Predictive coding ideas are increasingly influencing artificial intelligence, providing a powerful, biologically inspired framework for designing more sophisticated, maybe even more truly intelligent AI systems.
It seems like modern AI already has some remarkably direct parallels to what we've been discussing about the brain, doesn't it?
Absolutely, the parallels are striking. Modern AI often uses generative models. These are systems designed to learn underlying patterns in vast data to generate new data resembling the original. A prime example is autoregressive language models, like those powering advanced chatbots. They fundamentally operate by predicting the next word in a sequence based on the preceding ones. This is conceptually very similar to how the brain predicts the next moment of sensory input. Furthermore, modern AI increasingly incorporates Bayesian techniques to handle uncertainty and make more robust inferences, directly echoing the probabilistic nature of the Bayesian brain.
And what about active inference? Is that specific idea influencing AI's approach to decision-making? Control systems.
Yes, quite profoundly. Active inference has inspired novel control algorithms that select actions by minimizing surprise instead of maximizing explicit rewards. This represents a fundamental shift in AI's approach to decision-making and robotic control. Instead of explicitly programming an AI to chase a score or a reward, you design it to explore and act in ways that reduce uncertainty or surprise in its sensory stream. This directly mimics the brain's proposed mechanism for driving behavior, potentially leading to AI systems that are more autonomous, more intrinsically motivated to explore and understand their world.
It also seems like the concept of precision, that idea of weighting uncertainty we discussed, is becoming increasingly relevant in AI trends.
It absolutely is. The PP emphasis on uncertainty, precision, resonates strongly with current interest in probabilistic and Bayesian deep learning. This is a rapidly growing field in AI that seeks to quantify model confidence. It's no longer enough for an AI to just make a prediction. We increasingly want it to understand and communicate how confident it is in that prediction.
Why is that so important? knowing the confidence level.
It allows for more robust, safer, and more interpretable AI systems, especially in high-stakes applications like autonomous vehicles or medical diagnostics. Understanding uncertainty is paramount there. It can mean the difference between success and catastrophic failure. Precision matters.
So it really sounds like predictive processing offers a powerful unifying lens for understanding intelligence across vastly different domains, biological and artificial.
While it's critical to acknowledge that artificial networks still differ significantly from biological brains in many complex ways, PP does provide an incredibly powerful overarching framework. It suggests that in both fields, whether biological or artificial intelligence, the fundamental nature of intelligence may hinge on building internal models that predict data and on efficiently updating those models from error. This provides a common conceptual ground, offering deep insights that can drive future innovations in both neuroscience and AI.
You've just seen how a deep understanding of the human brain's predictive power is shaping the very future of artificial intelligence, creating this fascinating, accelerating convergence between these fields.
Exactly. Key takeaways for predictive processing's influence on AI include generative models. AI systems, like language models, increasingly operate by predicting future data, mirroring the brain's predictive processes, making AI more anticipatory. Active inference AI. New AI control systems are being designed to act by minimizing surprise, not just maximizing rewards. A biologically inspired shift towards intrinsic motivation. Precision in AI. The concept of precision, uncertainty, confidence, is vital in probabilistic AI for building robust, reliable models that know their own limits. Unifying principle. Predictive processing offers common ground for understanding intelligence, suggesting both biological and artificial forms rely on building and updating predictive internal models.
So what does this all mean for us? We've journeyed through this intricate landscape of the Bayesian brain, from those illusory airplane crashes defying reality to the philosophical implications of dopamine and the future of AI. It truly represents a profound shift in how we understand our own minds, doesn't it? And the very nature of reality itself.
The realization that your perception isn't a passive mirror, but an active, dynamic, constant prediction-making process. Well, it's truly profound. It encourages us to meticulously question our assumptions, to grasp the incredible complexity within our own minds that constantly constructs our world. And this raises that important question again. If our reality is constantly being predicted and refined, what does that mean for our sense of objective truth? How much of what we accept as real is merely a highly refined, yet ultimately internal hypothesis our brain is tirelessly working to confirm?
For your next thought experiment, maybe consider this. If your brain is constantly predicting the world to minimize surprise, how much of what you experience is truly new information that provides genuine novelty and fundamentally alters your internal model? And how much is merely your brain efficiently confirming its own masterful, internally consistent hypothesis, just finding evidence for what it already expects?
And if that's the case, what responsibility does that give you in actively shaping your own internal models? Recognizing their immense power to define your subjective reality, think about how your own strong priors, your deeply held beliefs, perhaps formed by years of specific experiences or exposure to certain information, might be influencing your perception. Your perception of complex subjects like political discourse or scientific debates, or even just the dynamics of interpersonal interactions. Do you actively seek out prediction errors, those moments of surprise? Or do you, maybe unconsciously, filter for confirmation, reinforcing what you already believe to be true?
We hope this deep dive has given you a powerful new lens through which to view your own mind and the world around you, hopefully stimulating even further intellectual curiosity.
Remember, the journey of understanding never truly ends. There's always more to explore.
Until next time, keep predicting and keep learning.